Welcome back to Petty Astrology. I'm your host, Kaycee Felton-Lui. We've survived another dumpster fire of a week out there, and I hope you are resisting and finding joy and taking care. And we're going to need to take care because we have not one, but two Virgo new moons this year. I guess one was not enough, so I'm going to talk about everything you need to know to get ready for it. Today on the podcast, get ready for a reset with the Virgo new moon. The Virgo new moon. So nice we're doing it twice this year. That happens sometimes. That part is normal. What is abnormal is that the first new moon is 0 degrees Virgo, and then the new moon that we're having in Virgo in September is at 29 degrees Virgo. If you know anything about astrology, those are what we call critical degrees. If you don't know about those, try not to read too much into it, but for the purposes of this conversation, you should know that these are inflection points. They're significant, and they're significant individually, the 0 degrees and the 29 degrees. But to have them together in this pairing that we have them in, well, that's really got me thinking a lot. The new moon we're focusing on today is happening on August 22nd, and it's the day that the sun moves into Virgo, and then we have the new moon about 9 hours later. It's at 0 degrees and 23 minutes of Virgo, and it's happening square Uranus in Gemini. This is the energy of big and potentially uncomfortable change. And it's change that may not be very predictable. Now, in terms of world events, there are a few things that I have my eye on that this energy could really shake up or accelerate or offer a twist to in some way. And I'm particularly looking at Donald's takeover of Washington, D.C. Obviously, there is a hell of a lot happening there. And yes, he is trying to distract from the Epstein files and other things that he doesn't want people talking about. But also remember that this has been on the Republican agenda, and some of the influencers that are behind the Republican Party, people like Peter Thiel, have interest in doing things like this because they have a particular vision for the future, which, as you can see, is incredibly horrifying, which is why we must stop it. The other things that I'm really looking at with this new moon is the evolution of Israel's invasion of Gaza. They have consistently avoided ending this blockade that is literally starving and killing people, and they have made it very clear that their intention is to invade Gaza, push people out of Palestine as they have been for generations. Not enough is happening to stop this, but we are seeing an increase in political resistance in Israel because people have their own perspective there on the situation. It's not a very good perspective, in my opinion, but there is unrest. And there are people in other places in the world that I think are going to continue to push to accelerate attention and change on this issue because we are approaching almost 2 years of this horrific, ongoing genocide. And this energy has the potential to fuel continued violence that has been going on there and elsewhere. Another issue that I am looking at is the potential TikTok ban. As we know, there has been a lot of kicking the bucket with Donald and his plans for this app. What I am particularly looking at is how much information about this we still don't know. TikTok has issued new community guidelines that are pretty horrible. They remind me a lot of my episode called We Need to Talk About TikTok that I put out, I don't know, at least a year ago, where I predicted pretty much all of this. I don't know that we will necessarily have more information about the ban with this new moon, but what I'm particularly concerned about is what is going on behind the scenes, because I think whatever's happening is very intentional. I think that the moves that have been made with TikTok behind the scenes have been very intentional, and I think we actually don't know all of the moves. I don't think that they're publicly available. But TikTok is an incredibly attention-getting and revenue-generating platform, and that means that it is a jewel for whoever can influence what's happening on that platform. And we've seen consistent degradation of that platform. The user experience has gotten much worse. The creative experience has gotten much worse. It is not our friend. As much as I enjoy being on the app, as much as a lot of you have found me there, it's had problems for a long time. And so whatever's happening behind the scenes around this new moon with regards to that, I think is significant. We are coming up on eclipse season in September, and I think that is where we'll see more of that information come out publicly. But either way, I think we should really understand that we need to view these platforms very carefully going forward. There's a consistent effort around the world, but especially with the United States government and other governments that are trying to censor people's access to information and to the internet. And it's only going to continue, I think, until we put a stop to it. This energy is really pointing me towards that control is still there, whether or not we know exactly what is happening behind closed doors. And we really need to act and strategize accordingly. So as we talk about your personal relationship to this Virgo new moon, keep all of this collective stuff in mind. Maybe you can't personally fix these problems. Probably you can't, because these are bigger issues that demand collective action. And we are best at collective action when we know how to take care of ourselves, when we know how to be of service and what we have to offer to a movement that is greater than us and how we can sustain that. This Virgo new moon is really helping us embody this season of change that we're in. Virgo is the end of the summer season. It's also related to the harvest in traditional Western astrology. One of the beautiful things about Virgo energy is that there's often a clarity of purpose. It's very much about doing things that make sense. And with this Virgo new moon at 0 degrees and square Uranus in Gemini, this is a big reset. Virgo is already about revision. It's about making things that need to happen, and doing it with the tools that you have available in a way that makes the most sense. Virgo is speak to the manager energy, except for in this case, you are the manager. So your job is to manage, and namely yourself, because that is the thing that you actually have the most control over. There is a concerted effort to deprive regular people, working class people like you and I, from support, especially here in the United States, but it's happening in other places. And that is because the transits that we're going through astrologically and fascism are global. They are things that don't just affect a tiny corner of the earth. They spread. They have a wide reach, unfortunately, because if you don't stamp out fascism, it does spread. And it's about power and control and dominance in a world that, especially to fascists, feels very out of their control and frightening. Some of us haven't really confronted this before, even though this has been a part of many of our cultures and societies for far longer than the past few years or decades even. So this is an important time to remember to give yourself permission to adapt, to revise the way that you approach things, because as I say very often, this is a new time. The old approaches, the old habits, the old ways of doing things are not necessarily going to be the key to moving through this time. It is important to adapt. It's important to revisit your plans and your hopes and your dreams and how you're trying to reach those goals given, where we are in time and space. As you're looking at your life for this new moon, You want to look at things and ask whether or not they are helping or not helping. And that may seem very simplistic, but I think it is clarifying because you probably need to get rid of some of the things that aren't really helping and add more things that are actually helping you. With the stress of this year and your personal responsibilities and your emotions and the way that you're just processing all of this change and hopefully resistance work that you're doing, you probably need more support than you have in the past. And that is okay. But what is important is that you actually give yourself what you need, even if it's more than before. Think about giving yourself necessary physical accommodations. And these may be things that involve your eating habits, or your physical movement, or your health, or how you organize your time. One of the things I've learned from the disability justice movement is that a lot of us are raised in an ableist culture, and especially those of us who live in the United States or other Western countries that revolve around capitalism. We're taught to make do and push ourselves to the limit, but that is actually not what gets us through a winter. We don't get to where we're going by beating ourselves into submission. We get there by giving ourselves the best support we possibly can. And at a moment where particularly the US government is trying to deny us support in what is an open class war at this point, giving yourself and those around you support is a radical act. And it's an important act because it keeps you here. It keeps you healthy. And hopefully it keeps the people around you here and healthy as well. This new moon is a time to set yourself up for success, to gather what you need, and finish the rest of 2025 strong. This is not a process that you necessarily need to rush, because tending to your physical needs, it pays off when we take care of ourselves, when we make our day-to-day lives make more sense for what our actual physical needs are. It seems common for a lot of people to overestimate their physical capacity to power through things, to get viruses that are preventable but also very dangerous over and over and over again, and not do anything to protect ourselves or the people around us. By the way, another prediction I have for this new moon is an increase in COVID cases that we've been seeing really take off as kids go back to school. So make sure that you're preparing for that. Virgo season is a great time to get back into masking and testing and remembering that we can spread COVID with no symptoms. And the Make America Healthy movement is taking away people's access to healthcare. So it's a really good time to understand that when we take care of ourselves and protect ourselves and encourage our community to do the same, it actually does result in more physical protection and better health. This is a really great new moon to adjust how you are taking care of your physical vessel. Because without this body, well, we're not really having this life experience now, are we? At least not in the same way. So taking care of our bodies is actually pretty essential to the whole deal. Given that this is the first in a series of 2 very interesting Virgo new moons, I want you to give yourself permission to not have all the answers right away. Whatever changes that you might need to make could become very apparent to you as we enter this first Virgo new moon. Take note of those things, but give yourself until the new moon on September 21st to practice what potential solutions might be and how you might implement those solutions in your life in a way that really works for you. This is going to be a process of assessment. Let it be a process. Let yourself develop more systems and more details in your life that can really support you. Instead of avoiding problems, just face them head on, honestly, clearly. Ground yourself in knowing that the steps that you're taking are making your life just that much easier for you. And accept that you are worthy of ease, and you're worthy of taking the steps and doing the work to create that ease. And notice how when you give it to yourself, it's easier for you to give it to other people, to be of support in your community, to show up as rested and cared for and whole as we all deserve to feel. Aside from writing out your intentions for this new moon and working out what it is that you want to adjust in your life, something I find helpful to do for new moons is to do some kind of activity or ritual or exercise that really embodies how I want to use the energy to feel. Like what my best case scenario use of that energy feels like for me. I try to create a situation that reflects that. Moon phases last for 3.5 days, so you have time to do something that represents this Virgo new moon for you. Do something that makes you feel supported, or do something that helps support someone else, and see what that teaches you. Get curious about what's underneath that and what you can learn from that and how you can take the good things with you. Challenge yourself to be creative with your solutions and not default to what you've done in the past or what's expected of you. Sometimes the best thing for us is something we've never tried before. And that's something to remember for this Virgo new moon. If you haven't already joined our Patreon, now would be a great time. I'm going to be doing the flash sale that I've been teasing for a while now in August, and it's going to be open to all Patreon levels, including the free ones. I don't do this very often, so if you want access to that sale and my regular astrology updates and more, join us over on Patreon at the link in the show notes. If you are a paid sponsor of Petty Astrology, I've got a new poll on our next bonus episode dropping on Thursday. Make sure you check your inbox and vote in that. I've got some very juicy villains, and you get to decide whose chart I do next, so make sure you vote. Every Thursday evening at 5 p.m. Pacific time, I go live on Twitch for Petty Astrology Live. This week I'll be talking more about these Virgo new moons and the current events that are being impacted by them. The great thing about Twitch is I can speak a lot more freely than I can on TikTok, so you don't want to miss those live streams. But if you do miss them, I've also got you covered because sponsors of this podcast get every bonus episode from me, including Petty Astrology Live. That's it for this week's episode. Tune in on Patreon for even more Petty Astrology. This episode was written, edited, and produced by me, Kaycee Felton-Lui. The podcast art is by Max Swanson. The music is by Paul Schneider. The score in the main segment was by Relaxing Time. This podcast was brought to you by my sponsors over on Patreon.